if I do a mailbag episode this time of year, like we did last week, majority of the questions are about who do you think is going to make the playoffs? What do you think about the structure of the playoffs? What do you think about the portal? What do you think about NIL? And a lot of it basically is just, hey, do you think some stuff needs to get fixed? Do you think anything's broken about college football? And I'm like, well, there's always stuff that needs to get fixed. Love the sport. Love it. Greatest sport on the face of the earth. Even with all its flaws, you can run your hand over college football and there are grains of sand all over it. Very much an imperfect surface on this sport of ours right now, but we love it, man. Love it. I'd take this 10 miles over covering and or talking about any other sport for a living. So I've immersed myself in this my whole life. I don't plan on going anywhere. But the follow-up question that I've gotten a lot lately is, are there things happening right now that could make you walk away, or do you think there are things happening to college football right now that could turn you off? Or if they couldn't turn me off, could they turn enough people off to where college football is not as popular as it is? And your instinct is to say football's a monster. Football's never going to fade away. And I'm right if I say that. Football's never going to fade away, but that's not the question. The question shouldn't be phrased that way. It's not an A or a B. It's not a zero sum. It's not an all or nothing. That was the incorrect usage of zero sum. It's not all or nothing. It's not 24 million people watch a conference title game or no one watches it. It could be 24 million to 19 to 16.5 to 13 and 3/4. You know, it could be precipitous in its decline. How would that happen, though? And is there some stuff in the soup right now that doesn't need to be in the soup that if we leave it in there could ruin it? Well, yes, but I don't think it has anything to do with the playoff. Most of the complaints that I've seen, and I may not be looking in the right places, but most of the complaints I've seen lately have to do with the playoff. A lot of people upset, for instance, that Arizona State and Boise got a first-round bye. I got you there. We agree that the format's jacked up. I think they'll fix it. I've done a whole other video on that. So that may have you upset, but have any of you really thought about walking away from college football and not watching it anymore because you think Arizona State should be in, but not with a first-round bye? I don't think so. And even someone who said yes to that, I don't really think you mean it. I'm not calling you a liar. I'm just saying you lied about that. I'm not calling you a casual. I'm just saying you said something casual. It's not the playoff, no matter what the structure of the thing is, that would turn people off. I didn't want the playoff to expand. It expanded. I promise you, I'm going to watch every game. I'm going to go to a game or two each round. Had a private aviation company hit us up today. Jesse, Colin, I didn't tell you about that. Gelby, I hope you're listening as well, so we'll workshop that idea off air. But, I'm all in on the playoff. I'm all in on college football no matter what the playoff format is. However, I don't think that college football is totally safe, and certainly no form of entertainment in the American ecosystem is immune from poor decision-making ruining it. Football is no different in that vein than any other. There are some skeptics out there who say, doesn't matter. Football could have the worst decision-makers with their hands on the wheel, but as long as it's football, I'll always watch. Well, that's not true. That's not true because I see the numbers for the USFL or the XFL. I see the numbers for other leagues that are playing football, and a lot of you don't watch those. So if it's just football you're seeking, all of those should do bonkers numbers. There's something more to the adhesive that connects you to the NFL or that connects you to college football than just, well, it's 100 yards by 53 1/3, and the ball's shaped the same, and the lines look the same. Let's go. Some of you just love this sport and you'd watch it no matter where they played it, and that's great. Most of you aren't like that. So I want to take you to something James Franklin said the other day, because as you know, we were on the air the other night, and Bo Pribula, who is the backup quarterback for Penn State this year, he's played for them this year. He had to come in and win them a game against Wisconsin this year. I mean, they literally would not be in this position had he not come in and bailed them out. So it's not a guy you've never seen before. He's played this year. He's their backup. He would be the first one taking snaps this Saturday if Drew Aller went down in the first quarter, except that he wouldn't, because as we were on the air the other night, we got the breaking news that Bo Pribula had entered the transfer portal. And that's the structure of the sport right now. So anyway, I think some folks are maybe fans of college football, but you don't so much pay attention to the weeds. I know we got a big chunk of people who use our show to get caught up on college football, but you're not in the weeds of it. So here's what you need to know, and I'm about to play you some sound from James Franklin. This sport's a mess right now. December, the calendar is a mess right now. Our version of free agency is you can go in the transfer portal and move pretty much anywhere and anytime you want to, but there is a window. The window just so happens to overlap with the college football playoff. That you heard me right. The ability for players to move overlaps. It literally lays over on the calendar our playoff. And you may think to yourself, well, there's no way that's true, because if that were the case, that would mean players on playoff teams, if they want to move, would have to go in the portal while their team's in the playoff. That's not right, huh? Yes, you're understanding me. Oh, it's very wrong, but you are correct in that that's the way it is. So Bro Pabula goes in the portal the other night. Some folks say, shame on that kid for bailing on his team. I knew, because, folks like us are immersed in this thing all day. He was going in, and he really doesn't have that much of an option. Here's James Franklin, his head coach, talking about it later.
We got problems in college football. And I can give you my word, Bo Pabula did not want to leave our program, and he did not want to leave our program until the end of the season. But the way the portal is, and the timing of it, and the way our team is playing, and when you play the position of quarterback and there's only one spot, and those spots are filling up, he felt like he was put in a no-win situation.
If you want to know, in the long term, what could end up putting a dent in the popularity of college football, it's how backwards the sport is. It's the fact that for a long time, in the absence of real leadership, the wrong people snaked their way into positions of leadership and got their hands on the wheel and drove the thing in the ditch. The wrong people have made decisions in this sport for far too long. That's how you've got unrestricted free agency, and then you've simultaneously got like no cap on spending. The playoffs overlap with the portal, which also somehow overlaps with coaching carousel season. National Signing Day is during the week of conference championship games, not to mention the portal, then bleeding over into bowl season and subsequently the college football playoff season. Conferences have been gutted. The conferences have been realigned to the point where the sport features a team that can see the Pacific Ocean out its window, playing conference games against teams that can see the Atlantic Ocean out of their window. Emphasis on the word conference, which used to have regional and territorial meaning and doesn't anymore. So how do you fix that? Because the problem's already there. You can complain about it all day. How do you fix it? Well, number one, very basically, you've got to first get the people out of the room that made the mess. You can watch them make the mess. Do not then allow them to say, hold on, we'll clean it up. No, you had your shot. You tried your way. So you got to strong arm them. These are usually pretty weak-minded people. These are people that in the absence of real leadership have slithered their way into positions that they are wholly unqualified for. But the thing about those kinds of people is they'll shrink back into the corner pretty quickly if real leadership walks in. Real leadership is pretty broad-shouldered, figuratively if not literally. It's a loud voice. It's someone who's not afraid to look you in the eye and just tell you to shut up, because what you're saying is dumb. It's not afraid to tell you that you've made a mess, and so the children need to get out so the adults can take care of it. Now, those kinds of people exist in this sport. It's just usually those kinds of people have not had a desire to climb up the administrative ladder, because they're usually busy either coaching or playing, or they're usually busy running their own companies. And so what you got to hope is you got some of those folks who are well enough off financially to where they're willing to take this on. I think we have those kinds of people out there. I think in some ways they're already working behind the scenes. But what I'm trying to get to here is once you identify those people, they got to step up, and then you've got to demand action. For example, if you were to bring up right now the fact that it's insane this quarterback from Penn State has to go in the portal, not because he wants to right now, but because despite the fact that his team's in the playoff, if he wants to transfer, he may be SOL if he doesn't do it right now. Well, that's because the calendar's jacked up. They would tell you, if you complained about that, well, what can we do about it? Look at the way the academic calendar's structured. We have semesters in this sport, it's still student athletes, wink, nod. We can't do anything about it. You haven't done anything about it. I think almost certainly the last idiot in the room understands the calendar's not going to stay this way forever. There will be change. Eventually, you'll have to drag people kicking and screaming over the finish line, but there will be change eventually. And so someone like me looks at that strictly from a pragmatic standpoint and say, if it's going to get fixed eventually, what stops us from fixing it now? The only thing that stops us from fixing it right now is the right people in the room. But here's the warning. Here's what I'm trying to get to. It is possible that people en masse leave anything in the entertainment world. They could leave Yellowstone just as quickly as they could leave watching pro wrestling, just as quickly as they could leave one of their favorite singers, just as quickly as they could get turned off from college football. It's as simple as taking the adhesive away. There is something that's attracted me to college football my whole life. There's something that attracts you to college football. That's something that you love about it. It's not just the superior athleticism. If all you cared about was watching football played at the highest level, you just watch the NFL on Sundays. There is something unique unto college football that attracts you, that attracts me, that attracts all of us, that you really can't find anywhere else. Therein lies its value. A lot of that's pageantry and tradition, but I will tell you, a lot of it is someone who lives in Tupelo, Mississippi, really respecting and adoring that Ole Miss logo. Someone who lives in Johnson City, Tennessee, respecting that Power T. Someone who lives in Southern California, respecting that SC logo, and understanding that for their whole lives, basically, the guys who have been fortunate and blessed enough to wear that uniform chose that university. They weren't drafted there. They were recruited there. They probably had many other options, and they chose Ole Miss. They chose Tennessee. They chose USC. And it meant something because the loyalty that they showed that brand over the span of 3, 4, 5 years, with very few exceptions, was consistent. They were there. They're there as a freshman. They're there as a senior. Just like you're there every year. Just like you've been bought in. You weren't fortunate enough or blessed enough to play there. In all likelihood, God did not grant you that kind of athletic ability, but you loved that the ones who did have it bought in and then largely stayed. And if someone didn't, it was the exception to the rule. It wasn't the rule. And what that reflected was they adhered to some of the same values and principles. They loved some of the same thing about that logo that you did. And so there was sort of a symbiotic relationship there. When you see that thrown in the garbage, and when you see mercenaries, and when you see a transactional state overtake college football and college athletics, I am telling you point blank that turns off a lot of people. I know a lot of you are watching this right now nodding your head. Now, you haven't left. I haven't left. I feel the way I'm saying it right now. I feel this. You haven't left. It would take a lot more for you to leave. But it would be the height of arrogance and outright ignorance in this country to think that college football could never fall victim to people being turned off to the point where there's irreversible damage done to it. There's nothing in world history that's ever been immune to that. You could talk sports, you could talk entire empires. You put the wrong people in charge, and things can go south really quickly. And what you find is, once things start going south really quickly, really sometimes doesn't matter once you reach terminal velocity, whether you get the right hands on the wheel or not, you can't turn it around. We're nowhere near that point in college athletics. We're nowhere near that point in college football. That's why it's important to get the right hands on the wheel now.